I'm back this morning here in San Antonio with Jeff Judson, who is running for, what is the particular district number?
District 121.
121. And your main opponent is the current Joe Straus, who has been, how many years has he held that particular position?
He was elected to the House in 2005 and in a special election, and he's been Speaker since 2009.
So he's been there 10 years.
Been in office. He's currently entering his 12th year in office.
Wow. Okay. What made you decide to run? There's got to be something that sparked Jeff to go, I need to do something different. I need to go after this. What was it that got your attention and drew you in?
Well, having kind of worked in the conservative movement for many years, I hear the horror stories from a lot of my friends and colleagues about the legislation that they've worked on that has died in the Texas House that should be passing with our large conservative majorities in the House and the Senate. I had a personal experience which really was kind of the tipping point for me, which was my advocacy over the last two sessions on a very good school choice bill. And there was this last session, Senate Bill 4 was a priority of the Lieutenant Governor. It passed the Senate with a bipartisan supermajority, and it went to the House. It was referred to the House, and then I went and met with Joe Straus in his office, and I said, Joe, this is a bill. There are 27 other states that have school choice. It's been proven that it works. Texas is behind the curve. The Republican Party at the national and state level says this is a priority policy issue. 84% of Texas Republican primary voters in 2012 said that they wanted school choice to pass. It's time for there to be a fair up or down vote on the floor. And his answer to me was, sorry, Jeff, my leadership just doesn't like this bill. And
Wow.
that bill died in committee without a hearing.
Lots of conservative bills seem to have that same fate.
Yes, but sitting in his office and him telling me, essentially, this bill is going nowhere. I mean, we did absolutely everything humanly possible according to the, political science of how you promote a bill. We had done everything, and he just killed it, and it died without a hearing. And when something dies without a hearing, that's a real slap in the face to,
Lots of people that worked on it.
in this case, not just the people that worked on it, but the entire Republican Party at the national and the state level. I mean, it was his whole base, who we are as Republicans, and he just said, it's not important, not even worth a hearing. That was when I realized this person has got to go.
And you just happen to live in the same district, so
Right.
Why not me, I guess.
Well, I mean, it's not something I've never had this burning desire to be a state representative, but I knew that I just had to step up and do it.
Yeah.
Because of my past activism here at the local level and, the little bit of name ID that I had and a little bit of a reputation, I felt like I was probably the only person in the district that could really run a race that could hope to defeat him.
Yeah. You've done a lot of work at the Capitol. You've been involved in a lot of the legislative sessions with various causes. Do you find that Joe Straus has had more of a liberal tint to the decisions he's made and what he's allowed to come to the floor as opposed to conservative?
Yes, very much so. You find that a lot of the priority issues, again, for the conservatives in Texas, or they just die in the House. I have walked to over 5,000 doors now during this campaign, and I go and I listen to people. I don't talk, I listen to what they care about.
Good.
And about 70 or 80% of the people list immigration as their number one issue.
That's huge.
And they're concerned about illegal immigration. And these are, whether they're, white Anglo-Saxons or immigrants with thick accents who are first-generation immigrants,
Yes.
they all feel the same way.
Yes.
And sanctuary cities legislation is one bill that has died in the Texas House the last two legislative sessions. And the chairman of the committees, a member of Joe's leadership team, has instead pushed his own bill to grant driver's licenses to illegal aliens.
Which opens up the door soon, probably, for
voting.
them to vote.
Sure. And so, it's just the opposite of what people are crying for.
Yeah.
And, Joe either doesn't care or he supports it. You have to draw the conclusion that he supports these things that his committee chairs are doing, because he keeps reappointing them year after year, even though we keep complaining about what these people have done. I know when, 2 sessions ago, when I met with Joe, we asked Joe to please, as he was appointing members of the House Education Committee, please don't appoint a chairman of that committee who would be hostile to school choice. We wanted a chairman who would just give it a fair hearing.
Yes.
So he made his committee appointments, and we looked at the committee appointments, and we figured out that we did not have one person that supported school choice on the entire committee, much less the chairman, not even one member. They were all, strident opponents. And so that's, and then under the heading of religious liberties, this is where the culture is eroding. And we're coming under
Yes.
attack. The extreme left LGBT movement is trying to redefine the family.
Yes.
They're trying to divide us in our churches. They're trying to force us to accept things that completely defy the core doctrines that are thousands of years old. And it's not because they're under attack or that they suffer this great discrimination. They just want to redefine the fundamentals of our society. And we have to see it for what it is.
Yes.
In anticipation that the Supreme Court was going to rule, and last summer, in anticipation of that, the Texas legislature had 14 religious liberty bills that would have protected pastors and churches from being forced to perform gay marriages if it was against their religious beliefs. We wanted to have a situation where there was a clear protection where you couldn't sue a church and
Right.
force them to marry. Just imagine.
Against their own doctrine.
I just imagine if we went down that path. There were 13 bills that died in the House that would have protected the religious liberties of churches, of orphanages, child welfare organizations that could be forced to give up for adoption children under their care in family situations that they don't approve of. And that bill did not pass. So these child welfare organizations are currently at risk. And most, if not all of them, that are faith-based organizations, they will shut down rather than violate their beliefs. They'll just go out of business.
True. Yes.
Which is probably what the other side wants to happen,
Yeah.
quite frankly. So,
Does there seem to be an agenda running through the House under the current leadership that is perpetuating this type of legislation, either being stopped or others getting through that are against the family values, conservative, the Republican supposable side of the ticket?
well, there's clearly an agenda. And what you have to remember is that Joe Straus was elected Speaker in 2009 by the Democrats,
Yes.
not by the Republicans.
Yes, that's a
He
good
got a
point.
unanimous vote to be Speaker from all the Democrats in the House, and only 11 Republicans voted to elect him Speaker.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that even with this last legislative session, 100% of all the Democrats once again voted for him for Speaker of the House.
That is correct.
So it's continuing.
That is correct. Then you look at his leadership appointments, and what you see is the Speaker assigns people to committees, and he appoints the leadership of the committees, both the chairman and the vice chairman. So we have a 2/3 Republican majority in the House. How many people would you say, if we have a 2/3 Republican majority, would you say that maybe 2/3 of the leadership should be Republican and maybe 1/3 Democrat? Or, you know, quite frankly, I would probably prefer that all the leadership be Republican. And we can still operate in a bipartisan manner, but
True.
but to lead committees, it seems like the party that is in power ought to lead the committees. But be that as it may,
What were the numbers this past
Joe
session?
Straus has appointed 50 Democrats in leadership and only 46 Republicans,
Ouch.
and we have a 2/3 majority.
Ouch.
So that tells you a lot.
It says volumes.
So is there an agenda? Joe, in order to stay in power, must keep these extreme liberal Republicans and Democrats in power. And sometimes it's payback time. And you see bills like the union dues checkoff bill. Now this is kind of meat and potatoes for Republicans around the country, that we want to stop the coerced collection of union dues by governments of their employees to collect union dues on behalf of these labor unions, and then those dues get funneled directly to elect Democrats. So why should we allow governmental units to help the unions collect their political
Right.
contributions? So there was a bill that was, again, strongly supported by the Republican Party and the Republican leadership and the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor, and it died in the House. Now, why would it die in the House? Well, number one, I've mentioned Joe's liberal leadership, but also many people don't know that Joe is the largest recipient of labor union contributions of any Republican in the House, of any Republican speaker in the entire United States,
Wow.
and he gets
Whoa.
more labor union money than all but 3 Democratic speakers in the entire United States.
Wow.
So, cause and effect.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's out of step with Texas values.
Yeah. Texas is probably in a more precarious situation right now. We're being challenged on lots of fronts. Our borders, sanctuary cities, all kinds of different things, right to life issues. Let's talk about some of those. What are you here? Or let me rephrase that. You said you've walked the blocks, 5,000 homes. What are you hearing your constituents saying? What are their concerns?
You know, oftentimes they'll say it's immigration and it's Second Amendment rights and it's religious liberty. And that's like all of that's our fundamental freedoms right
Yeah,
there, you know?
yes.
They've
Uh-huh.
just rattled off, you know, the
Yeah.
First and Second Amendments and to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and our sovereignty as a nation.
Yeah.
That's, you know, that's a lot more serious than even the economy or,
And we got to hold on to our foundation.
yeah.
Yeah, because
But people are worried about the fundamentals of our country, not just whether they're making enough money or if taxes are too high or any of that stuff. Which, yeah, they're also concerned about that too, but it's these fundamental issues.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Joe Straus calls them side issues. Yes, those were the words he used in last week or maybe it's even this week in Austin. He did a press conference and he called these issues that I'm criticizing him on side issues.
Wow.
Well, they're side issues to him because he doesn't talk to or listen to the grassroots voters.
Yeah.
He has no relationship with them. He doesn't like anybody from the Tea Party. He doesn't respect anybody with I mean, my old organization, I used to run the Texas Public Policy Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is a tremendous source of intellectual ideas for limited government in Austin. And virtually every Republican makes a pilgrimage to TPPF, and they speak at their conferences, and they attend their
Yes.
conferences, and they work with them, and they help them in committee hearings. And Joe Straus has never spoken at a TPPF conference and will have nothing to do with them.
Wow.
And I mean, this is a very mainstream,
Mm-hmm.
Great group.
So he's ignoring a large voice in our state.
Yes.
Right now, so many people are very focused nationally because of Trump and Cruz and all the national issues. But like I said, Texas, here at home, we need to focus on a lot of the things that are going on here. Let's hit some issues. Border security. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, sanctuary cities is the big deal there. When you have a sanctuary city, which Dallas, Houston, and Austin are officially sanctuary cities. San Antonio operates as one, but basically you have your city officials instructing their police departments not to ask the immigration status of people they apprehend for crimes. They just don't, and so what they're doing is they're shielding illegal migrants from the federal government in the enforcement of our immigration laws. And no wonder we have tens of thousands of people from Central America and other countries streaming across our border, parents sending unaccompanied minors across the border by themselves because, after all, the government is going to shield them from the government here. And that's just so insane. We've got to stop that. And
Well, we've created such a magnet.
Yeah.
Education, medical care, the refugees that potentially are coming in, they have been floored by the numbers of what we're spending to house and furnish and money we give them. It appears that we currently have a mindset of taking better care of invaders than we do our own veterans.
Right. And the issue of assimilation has been stripped from all of the federal government refugee resettlement documents and rules and guidelines. The issue of these people assimilating and becoming part of the American dream is not even a goal of the federal government anymore.
No.
I guess the expectation is that these people will come and create their own little enclaves of radical Islam or whatever it is they ascribe to, and we'll have these little pockets of people who are living in under their own belief system instead of assimilating into the American dream.
Exactly. Well, the Sharia law conflicts totally with the Constitution. So we've got issues there.
Right.
Where do you stand on the American laws for American courts?
Well, another bill that died in the House, and very strong supporter. Chris Byrd is a great guy up in Bernie, running for the state house.
Yes.
And he worked his tail off up in Austin, and that bill died. This liberal trial lawyer came in and testified against the bill, and the Republicans in that committee accommodated the trial lawyer's criticisms of the bill, and it died. But there's no place for Sharia law in the United States.
No, because it goes against our Constitution, and it literally strips those citizens that are being ruled under Sharia law from their what would be constitutional rights.
Right.
So,
I don't understand how people on the left, think it's somehow, pro women to be for abortion, and then which is of course a false notion, but then they turn their head on something like Sharia law, where there's nothing that abuses women more than Islam.
yeah, because women are property instead of a valued individual.
Yeah.
So, and that's
I think they're inferior property.
Yeah,
They're-
it's,
they're just-
yeah, their
they're just-
value is only half of a man. It takes two
Yes,
women to equal one
exactly.
man
Yeah.
on a court decision or an opinion or things like
Why,
that. from what I understand.
why aren't we offended by that? You know,
Yeah, crazy. How about, you've talked about sanctuary cities. What about right to life? That is still such an issue. We've just had two incidences in Houston. The Planned Parenthood videos that we have watched the horror of, and now a judge there has ruled that the people who uncovered
grand jury, yeah.
that uncovered all of this, that the people who did that are the ones at fault instead of Planned Parenthood. Where do you stand in the mindset of that?
There's so much wrong with that. I mean, okay, at a minimum, isn't it just a travesty of justice and a waste of resources that these people who were going around to try to expose the sale of fetal body parts,
Which is a crime.
which is a crime, are now accused of trying to buy fetal body parts? I mean, seriously? I mean, is this some kind of bad joke? This is horrible.
Yeah.
And that was one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen.
Then also out of Houston this year, or last year, we had the bathroom ordinance, or restroom would be the proper word, but they call it the bathroom ordinance, where if a man felt like a woman at the moment, he could use the female restrooms, showers.
Right.
What?
And people need to understand, this is a planned attack on the family, the natural family. This is not a time for us to be tolerant of other people's lifestyle choices, and that's somehow a loving position to take. People, this is a planned attack to redefine the family, and they want us over a number of years to start getting comfortable with the fact that we go into restrooms and there's men and women and they're transgendered or they're whatever, and we after several years of that, we'll start getting comfortable with that, and then, and it just goes from there. And this is part of their agenda. We need to recognize it for what it is.
Yeah. These family and religious issues are always kind of pushed aside, like we need to focus more on the economy and the roads and this, that, and another. And while yet those are important, if we lose our family, we lose a lot.
That's the fundamental unit of society.
Yeah.
It's the most important unit of government, is the family. And that's our belief system, is that, God, the creator, and man and woman, and a marriage, and a family, and then, everything stems from that.
Yeah, he put the family together first, and then he put together government.
Right.
But family was first.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the parental rights are, are fundamental to that, but in the view of people on the left, government's at the top, and redefining the modern society as they see fit on that particular day and the postmodern world, and that can change from week to week, depending upon what they think is important,
Talking about even the restroom order, or the forget the name of what they're calling it now. Plano's dealing with it, then Dallas, and it's moved around. It started actually here in San Antonio under Mayor Castro at that time. Do you feel that we need to have state legislation so it quits popping up like popcorn throughout the state?
Yeah.
What can we do to put a stop to it?
There was a bill that died in the House last session that would have prohibited cities from creating new classes, new protected classes of people that were not enshrined in state law. And that bill just needs to pass.
Yeah.
And that would stop it.
Because I think even the schools now are getting faced with this, with their students, and students saying, I'm such and such, and having to deal with that. And that's awfully young age for exposure for younger students to really understand all of those things. What are some of the other concerns that you have about what's going on in our state and what we need to do and what kind of action needs to be taken?
Well, there are a number of issues that that I'm hearing a lot about. We talked about school choice, we talked about sanctuary cities. You know, I guess the other thing is here in San Antonio is on the issue of transportation. One of the things Joe Straus is talking about is how he got the tolls removed from US 281 here in San Antonio. And so now I guess he's now against toll roads, you know, after he was for them. His leadership has presided over the proliferation of toll roads and our current toll road policy in Texas, which is horrible. And we've created this whole layer of these regional mobility authorities all over the state. They suck up millions of dollars in additional bureaucracy that aren't building roads. Even when that toll road is built, it's just another form of cronyism. That's just another means of taxation for people.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
To promote a non-transportation agenda. It's just, it really needs to stop. But here in San Antonio, I think what people are most angry about is our history on the streetcar, where in 2000, the transit agency put before a vote of the people a $1.5 billion streetcar system.
Wow.
And it was voted down by 70-30. And I led the charge against that back in 2000 when I was president of the Texas Public Policy Foundation at the time. And it was another David and Goliath moment because we didn't really have the hundreds of thousands of dollars to promote our research like the city and VIA and everybody all the downtown chamber people who wanted it. And we beat them 70-30. So they knew that they couldn't pass a streetcar proposal on the ballot. So they had to figure a way to get it built and avoid a public vote. So very quietly in 2011, under the leadership of Joe Straus, the legislature passed a bill. It was the Bexar County delegation that got a bill passed that took away the right of people in San Antonio to approve bonds to build a streetcar. That's one of the, you know, it's a pretty standard right of the people to approve debt in the government. Well, they took that right away for the use of this particular pot of money to build a streetcar. And then a couple of years later, they said, oh, we're going to build a streetcar system. And people said, well, don't we get to vote on it? No, there's no mechanism for voting on this because, and we discovered that this bill had passed. And so anyway, to make a long story short, we filed lawsuits, we got Attorney General Abbott to actually disapprove these bonds before they were issued, and then they sued the Attorney General, and then I called the Federalist Society in Washington to try to recruit, which I was able to, some conservative lawyers who intervened in that case, and anyway.
But that's taken away the people's rights again.
Right.
To be able to vote, to have a voice.
Because this crony streetcar project was more important than the fundamental right of people to approve, the government's debt before it's issued.
Another situation I've heard around through a meeting I actually attended at TPPF was having to do with the cities like San Antonio going in and annexing in large numbers of people that chose to live outside the city limits and then bringing them in to increase their tax base.
Right.
And from what I understand, Donna Campbell and Senator Campbell and others have been working on legislation to stop that. So San Antonio's got a lot of interesting situations going on here.
Well, what it is we have just allowed our cities to accumulate too much power. And
Yes.
And let me tell your viewers something that I think is a very important point. This notion of local control. Okay? Now, when it comes to education, to me, the ultimate local control is that parents get to decide where their kids go to school. But when you look at local control under under the U.S. Constitution, what the U.S. Constitution means by local control is that all power is granted to the states except those enumerated powers that are given to the federal government. This is another core doctrine that we've completely ignored now. Yeah. At the state level, all power is granted to the state, and only only specific powers are designated to municipalities according to what the state grants them.
All right.
But lately, under the notion of home rule cities, we have just granted carte blanche. The cities can basically do pretty much anything they want. Bathroom ordinances, they can create new protected classes of people, they can abuse our property rights, they can do all kinds of things that violate the conservative principles of our state. And we have got to start, I think, reining in these powers that we've granted to the cities and that they're abusing, and start clamping down on that. And so that's one of the things I hope to accomplish when I go to Austin.
That's interesting, because I know the city I live in, San Angelo, is a home ruled city, and it's in lots of ways. I hear that term come up quite a bit, of course, to our advantage. But I understand what you're saying about how it's been taken to the extreme, and allowing, like you said, creating new classes of people, and actually going against, in lots of ways, the state constitution. The ruling by the Supreme Court, June 26 or whatever the date was of 2015, about the rights for same-sex couples to marry, went against the U.S. Constitution and the Texas Constitution, and that's an issue that I think probably will be brought up in this next legislative session, since they are not, because they will have to rewrite the family code and all of that is on the books. We just voted a few years back, and the citizens of Texas said marriage was between a man and a woman. And so now we've got this conflict.
Well, the chairman of the committee who killed a lot of these religious liberty bills had his own legislation that was to remove the words mother and father from birth certificates. Because I guess he thinks that we should move to a society where we don't have a mother and a father. We have two mothers or two fathers, or whatever. So they're that just shows you what we're facing.
Yeah.
And the stark contrast between the leadership that Joe Straus has appointed and the leaders that we wish we had.
You're in a very unique position, because not only are you running against an incumbent, but who your incumbent is, being the Speaker of the House. Yeah. I know that your particular race has garnered state attention because of that unique situation. How does it feel running in a situation like that?
Well, let me tell you, things are going very well.
Good.
There's been a lot of prayer about this race all over the country, and that has made a huge difference. So I ask your viewers to please pray that truth would prevail in this race, and that the truth would multiply. Joe Straus has already spent $2.5 million on this race.
Oh my!
And he's going to spend who knows how much more before the end of the race. But we have contributions coming in. We need more, but we do have contributions coming in. We're just made our first radio and TV buy that will start airing very soon.
Good.
And the poll numbers show there is lots of movement, and Joe Straus's numbers are dropping like a rock. Now, can we get there by March 1st? I don't know. Depends upon how
prayer
many people
and
are
money.
prayer and money and that
and the voters
multiplication.
turn out.
Yeah, and people talking to other people.
Yeah.
That is key, because the dynamic is when somebody gets a piece of mail in their mailbox from me, they may throw it away without even looking at it. If they get a robocall, they probably won't answer the phone. If they see an ad on TV or the radio, they may not listen to it. They may change the channel. If a friend calls them and says, vote for Jeff Judson because this is really important for Texas, that may be the only influence that will sink in with some of these people who are, and quite frankly, sadly, many people are just ambivalent about politics.
Yeah.
So if a friend calls and says, this is who you need to vote for, that's worth 100 direct mail pieces,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
So I just ask people, please take the time to email or call your friends in this district in San Antonio and tell them to vote for Jeff Judson.
Share this video even with
Yeah.
their friends.
Yeah.
Send the link.
Yeah.
If they want to check out more about you and your stand on particular issues, what is your website?
It's jeffjudson.com.
Very simple.
Yeah.
All right. Very
And
good.
like me on Facebook. We have a lot of interesting things going up on Facebook, and so
All right. Early voting starts February
16th.
16th.
Yeah.
Okay.
and the election is March 1st.
All right. The main thing is get out and vote, and take a friend with you to the
Yeah,
poll.
that's right.
And talk to them all the way there. I really appreciate your time and being able to get back with you while I was here in San Antonio this trip.
Janet.
Look forward to staying in touch and hearing good things about how your race is going.
Well, we'll see you at the inauguration.
All right. I like that. Very good. All right. Thanks so much.
Swearing in, not the inauguration.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
electing a governor this time, just the swearing in, sorry.
Yeah, that'll be opening session January. Gee, I haven't checked what the date is
Yeah.
next year. So anyway, all right. All the best.
Thank
Thanks.
you very much.